Make sure you're all muted when you're not talking.
Yeah. It looks like we have folks coming in, attendees coming in right now. So good evening, everybody. We're going to give it a few seconds to let everybody get into our virtual room. It takes a few seconds to get everybody in here. So hang tight and we'll get started in just a short bit. All right. It looks like it has slowed down just a touch. So let me go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michelle Bird. I am the Public Affairs Director for Larimer County. We're so excited to have you all here tonight as we do a virtual kind of town hall meeting / groundbreaking / project highlight. We'll talk about the schedule for the project. So we have a lot of really exciting things to talk about tonight as we launch our transfer station construction project. Few things I just want to go. We're going to do introductions first, so you know who you all are looking at. And then we're going to hear a little bit extra from Lou Perez, our solid waste interim director. And then we have a pretty short video for you guys to watch. And then we're going to do another presentation about the project. And then at the end, we'll have a little question and answer session if you guys have questions for what's going on tonight. So with that, let's go around and I'll call out who's next to do introductions. So Lou, let's start with you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Michelle. My name is Lou Perez. I am the interim solid waste director, and I've been with Larimer County for about 1.5 years now. Started out as a project director, so I've been intimately involved with this project as well as our other capital projects with our waste shed. And thank you all for coming this evening.
Thanks, Lou. Let's go over to Justin.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I'm Justin Fonstock with Hazelden Construction. I'll be the project manager for the Larimer County Transfer Station. I've been with Hazelden 5 years, all over the state of Colorado, and I'm looking forward to getting the job started.
Thank you, Justin. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Michelle. Good evening. I'm Bill Renz with Itesco. We're the construction manager and owner's rep for both this transfer station project and the behavioral health project just a little bit down the street. Looking forward to getting this project started. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Griselda, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Griselda Still. I am the communications specialist for the solid waste department at Larimer County. And I am fairly new to my position, so I'd like to introduce myself.
Ooh, I'm muted. Thank you, Griselda. Todd, you're on.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Dill. I'm a pre-construction manager with Hazelden. Been with Hazelden about 15 years. And my role in the project, we were brought on a few months ago to help work through design and pricing and get the project started hopefully here soon. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Todd. And finally, Lori, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lori Cadridge, and I'm the Director for Community Planning and Infrastructure Resources for the county. And the landfill is one of the departments within our service area.
Thank you so much, Lori. And before I hand it over to Lou to just give a few introductory comments, I want to talk to you all about how you can participate tonight when we get to that portion of the event. As I said, we're going to have Q&A a little bit later on. If you have questions that come up as we're going through tonight, go ahead and put them in that Q&A box you see at the bottom of your screen. So most of you, it looks like most of you have come in through either the Zoom app on your desktop or on a laptop, on a mobile phone, maybe it's an iPad. And so you should see that Q&A button where you'd normally see a chat button. If you are calling in, it looks like we do have a caller. What I want you to do is press *9 if you have a question. That lets me know that you have your hand raised and I can unmute you and you can ask the question. That all being said, our chat, we don't have a chat like you would see in a normal meeting. I'm sure most of you are used to kind of the Zoom you use at work. This is a Zoom webinar, so we don't have the chat function. We have that Q&A function. truly it's a matter of safety for everybody involved. Since this is a public meeting, we do have concerns about folks coming in and sending out links to everybody through a chat box that may take you to a location that puts some type of virus on your computer, or maybe it's a site you don't want to go to. Also, you'll notice that you can only see the faces of the panelists tonight. Again, that's a safety issue. We do want to keep this open to the public, but we want to be conscious of making video available to everybody. So it's truly a safety issue why you use webinar. I know folks like to kind of sometimes use that chat box as an ongoing comments. You know, you don't necessarily have a question, but you want to comment on something. Go ahead and put it in the Q&A, and I'll go ahead and review it to make sure it doesn't have a bad link is truly what I'm looking for. And I will go ahead and make all the questions and comments tonight public. I don't filter them out for anything other than links or profanity. So that's how we're going to participate tonight when we get to the Q&A section. As I said, if you have questions that come up during the presentation, go ahead and put them in as they come up. That way you don't have to remember them, but we'll get to them at the end. So now that you know how to participate tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Lou to just do a few introductory comments.
Great, thank you, Michelle. And again, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this evening. This is probably a sign of the times, a virtual groundbreaking. Out of all the years and projects that I've done, and many of you have done other projects as well, we've never done a shovel in a Zoom. So this is quite unique for the undertaking. So I would be remiss without saying and giving thanks to a few people that have started this project many, many years ago. Some of you know the history due to the fact that the landfill will be closing. The landfill that was built in 1963 and only has a couple of years left of capacity. It's reaching its exodus into the universe. So therefore, we are building this transfer station. This transfer station is a cluster of other projects that we're building in order to manage our solid waste needs for the future within Larimer County. There was many folks that had a lot to do with the development of this project. The Wayshed Coalition, made up of representatives from Fort Collins, Loveland, Estes Parks, and Wellington. These groups all got together and developed a project scope and vision for the future of Larimer County. And we're very excited to have the transfer station as one of the key components of the Wayshed Coalition. So many thanks to the participants of that group, the representatives, both elected officials and staff representatives from the community that really had this foresight and this vision to put this together. I also want to thank our commissioners, particularly our two commissioners that are leaving, Steve Johnson, Tom Donnelly. They had a lot to do with the vision and the understanding of where we are today. Commissioner Kafalis is also very involved with this. So many thanks to the commissioners to having the vision and foresight to also pull this forward. With that, I want to pass it back to Michelle and give you all a little bit of taste of what we're doing with this transfer station. And then we'll pass it on to our construction and project team, which will educate you a little bit more detail about this great kickoff. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Lou, for that background. And as you guys notice, this is obviously not a traditional groundbreaking in the sense that we are all standing around in a muddy field in the middle of December. We decided, including a pandemic, that probably wasn't the right way to tackle this. And so what our very talented team did, Griselda headed up our team and created a groundbreaking video. We have a lot of the participants, those elected officials, the committee members, those people that traditionally would have spoke at a groundbreaking are included in this video to talk about a little bit more about the background. Lou gave a little bit of information, but a little bit more about the background. So in lieu of a official groundbreaking with shovels, I'm gonna present the video. So bear with me just for a second as I share my screen. All right, and then what I need to do is make sure that my sound is on. And once I hit play, if you guys can't hear it, I'm gonna need one of my panelists to jump in and say, Michelle, there's no sound. So if I don't hear from you, we're just gonna go. So Does everyone see a black screen right now? Awesome. Okay. Wish us luck.
Many years, decades in fact, we've been operating a landfill near Taft Road and Trilby. That landfill's been operated under the practices that were available at that time. And so we're moving more into the modern era. And so we've purchased property north of town to build what we call a modern landfill. And we're very excited because the transfer station is the first step in getting us into the modern landfill.
The journey probably goes back to, the current landfill, which was established back in the 1960s. We need a modern, state-of-the-art new landfill facility because the current landfill facility is set to reach its capacity and ultimately be closed, I think no later than 2024.
It was kind of our first opportunity, I think, in a really long time for Loveland and Fort Collins and Larimer County, Estes Park to kind of come together and say, what are we going to do with the future because our landfill is going to be full in 10 years.
It was really visionary on behalf of the Larimer County and the Larimer County Commissioners to say, we want to bring everyone to the table to begin with to address how we're going to manage waste in the waste shed here in Larimer County with the knowledge that our landfill was going to be closing in the near future.
How do we think about waste not just as something to send away or to bury, but something that we really need to think about as a resource?
One of the things that sets Larimer County apart is that we're working with various regional partners. We have 4 other partners on board at this time to consolidate how we handle waste materials within our region.
We're making sure we're in a safe situation, that we're all going to be covered in northern Colorado, and we can't expect excessive increases in trash costs because we have to leave northern Colorado with our trash. So those different tiered projects are helping us to develop that whole package where we're going to be safer and just have more options for our waste.
Everything's going to go through a transfer station versus just going into the landfill itself. And so we can sort, we can pull things out that can be recycled, metals and things like that. And so we're going to see a much smaller waste stream as an end result, but the services are going to be great, if not even better than they are now.
First thing is residents pull in, they're going to see a very nice environment. They're going to see landscaping, they're going to see trees, they're going to see a brand new gatehouse. As they enter the transfer station, unlike the landfill, it's going to be a concrete pad. There's going to be 13 bays where they could actually pull in, unload, and then get on their way. And they'll be in and out much quicker than before.
One of the primary goals of this whole project, which includes the transfer station and all of these other things that we've been talking about, is the fact that we're going to ratchet up as much as possible the percentage of material that's diverted away from the landfill. And the new landfill that will be built in the next number of years is going to be state-of-the-art. It's going to be lined. It's going to be, everything's going to be compacted.
It is designed in order to have the minimal impact to the community around it and to actually look beautiful in the end.
Transfer station and a new landfill, compost facility, and also construction and demolition, what we call C&D. These are all our Tier 1 projects, and the Solid Waste Department is very excited about this because the transfer station represents the first of multiple projects, not only to deal with the fact that we're closing our landfill and now have a new avenue for landfill disposal, but we're also going to have landfill diversion associated as part of our project mix.
Diversion really is key when we're talking about landfills, and how do we not put things in the landfill? And that's what's critically important. So when we look at the plan and the future of what those elements are, I think those are the ones that really are going to start to impact and be exciting.
Compost, food waste, much more vigorous recycling programs, removing construction and demolition materials like concrete, wood, and shingles out of the landfill stream. That's going to add a lot of years to the life of our facility, but it's also going to give us the ability to reuse a lot of those materials.
This group is really driving towards the long-term picture. We're making sure that we plan in advance and make sure we know what growth is happening, what the needs will be for so many communities.
It's a transformation way of looking at our waste from just something that you might bury to something that is a resource, and that we want to recover and use our waste as a part of our economy in the context of like a circular economy. So the Waste Shed Coalition, through some facilitation and so forth, we've had conversations where we're really looking at our waste as a resource in our community.
Everybody's got a different community too. Loveland's more conservative. Fort Collins is definitely more progressive and forward-thinking. Larimer County is a little bit more conservative in a lot of how they handle things. And then you throw in Estes Park, which they've got millions and millions of tourists coming through every day. I guess if you want to call it a melting pot of different ideas and different communities, and how everybody handles things a little bit differently, but how we all come together to really create a good project.
All right, let me stop sharing my screen. I know we have several people on with us tonight that were included in that video that have been vital partners in this process that started many years ago. Mayor Troxel, Tyler Vandermeer, who was also featured. I thought I saw former Loveland Council woman Leah Johnson on as well. I thought I saw her. Councilman Ross Knuff is on as well from Fort Collins. I know Larimer County is incredibly proud of this project because of the regionalism. It's truly reaching all the corners of our county, Estes up to Wellington, and people have come together to be forward thinking and truly, instead of looking at the waste shed in terms of municipal boundaries, look at the waste shed as a whole and to look at the waste shed in Larimer County as a whole. And I know the county is very excited this is kind of the first project to kick off after many, many years of conversations, community input. And so before we talk about the project, I wanted to make sure that Lou did this a little bit, but thank you to our elected officials, particularly that had the foresight to come together and get this project started. Our county commissioners wanted to be here tonight. Unfortunately, they're supposed to approve their master plan this evening. And so that unfortunately took priority, but they wanted to be here tonight. And I can never speak on behalf of them, but they also want to thank all the other elected officials and community members that have been involved up to this point in this project. And they're excited to start seeing the action. They love action, right? They're excited to finally see shovels in the ground and work being done. So thank you to everybody. With that, I am going to toss it over to Bill. Bill is going to give us a little bit of a project rundown. It's maybe the best way for me to say it. Does that sound right, Bill?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. And if the presentation is not showing, someone please let me know.
Looks good, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the construction details and overall schedule, a project rundown, as you mentioned. So first off, the transfer station itself, and here's a bird's eye view looking north. It is a 64,000 square foot building split roughly in half to accept both commercial and residential solid waste. In the waste shed plan, there's a future construction and demolition recycling area to increase diversion from the landfill. The project includes scale houses and gated entry with an administration building immediately adjacent to the facility. There will be a 3-day holding capacity. Current operations on the landfill require closure in high winds. And this 3-day holding capacity allows the facility to remain open and accept waste during that period. There will be an improved disposal experience. I'm sure in the video you saw Lou mentioning we will have paved entry and exit and a little bit more direct route in and out. And included with both this project and the behavioral health project, there'll be Trilby Road improvements, and that includes a signalized intersection at Taft Hill and Trilby, and paving of Trilby west of Taft Hill. The project team during construction is Larimer County, of course, Ditesco, we're the construction manager and owner's representative. Hazelden, it's actually a JV of Hazelden and Cambridge companies, will be performing the work as the general contractor. And on the call here, we have both Todd and Justin from Hazelden. We broke up the project schedule into some kind of larger components to review with graphics. Those components are the site mass earthwork, which will occur first, Trilby Road improvements. During those two operations, the transfer station building itself will begin construction. And then following or on the tail of that construction will be the site work, including road completion on site, revegetation. So the overall mass earthwork includes, it's a overall site cut, stripping of topsoil, roadway embankment, building embankment. The revegetation of this will be at the end of the project, so that topsoil will be stripped and stockpiled. The little kidney-shaped object on the upper right-hand side is the stormwater quality detention pond. And overall, we're moving about 600,000 cubic yards in this portion of the work. Next, and kind of on the tail end of that, starting roughly in June through August, and these are tentative dates based on a tentative project start, would be Trilby Road improvements. And again, that does include a signalized intersection at Trilby and Taft and paving west of the intersection. There will be addition of a right turn lane southbound onto Trilby and a right turn lane into the transfer station site. The overall building construction will start with tunnel construction under the building for outgoing disposal trucks. There's an unloading slab that gets poured on top of that. After that, a pre-engineered metal building, which is a clear span building, which is the large square in the center of the picture. There's also scale house area construction, which is a little bit south and to the west. On the tail end of that building construction, which as currently scheduled, completes in June or July of 2022, soil stabilization, road grading, and asphalt paving. So these are all the on-site roads and holding areas shown here. Concrete paving, redistribution of that topsoil and revegetation, as well as landscaping. And per the current schedule, assuming a start date in about March of this coming year, the transfer station would be operational around September of 2022. So per our project communication plan, there's several different avenues through which Larimer County will be providing information. There'll be a project sign with contact information on Trilby Road. Larimer County solid waste website updates will be posted monthly. So there'll be a link on the Larimer County website, and those monthly updates will be generated on the project and then uploaded to the site, so you'll have the latest information. There will also be social media updates and flyers. During construction, we foresee questions being answered by either very likely myself or Justin. So we put our contact info up here in this presentation. feel free to reach out if you do have questions following the conclusion of the presentation and the question and answer period, and we'll be sure to answer them. And with that, I will turn it back to Michelle.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. So, we know we wanted this to be a community meeting, not just a celebration of the project kicking off, but we really wanted to give this as an opportunity for our neighbors, our community members to ask questions about the project moving forward. So how is it going to impact the area around the project? How will it impact our neighbors? You guys did address a good portion about how the communication is going to happen. We wanted to open it up to folks if they had questions about the project timeline, how it's going to impact neighborhoods, that sort of thing. So at this point, we're ready for Q&A if you all are ready for Q&A. I am checking right now and I don't see any questions in the question and answer box. There was someone who said that you guys did a lovely job on the video, so good work on that. All right, we have our first question. So Richard asks, what is the projected impact on traffic on Trilby and any plans to address this?
I can go ahead and take that. Thank you, Michelle. So the majority of the traffic based on the traffic studies performed to date show that the traffic going into the landfill is basically the same traffic that'll be going into the transfer station. So the point of entry is a little bit further south and on Trilby Road as opposed to Taft. The increase would be from the incoming and outgoing loaded trucks that go from the transfer station site to the new landfill to the north of town.
Great, and just for, I know I get this question a lot, I've already heard this question a lot. Is there plans to have a stoplight at that intersection at Taft Hill and Trilby once the transfer station is operational?
Yes, per the project schedule, that is likely to occur, and we're still working on that schedule, so it's not set in stone. But this upcoming summer, we would expect roadway improvements, and it would either get a stoplight at that time or the following season.
So summer 2021, yes. Correct?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, Lou, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could add to that a little bit too, to just expand on that question. So what we've done with our site layout is on the northern side of our property, we will still have the existing gatehouse. So any traffic relative to yard waste or the future construction and demolition will be coming in from the north. The traffic to the south, where the new entrance will be just subject to for municipal solid waste, just for trash. So what we've done is we actually broken up a little bit of our traffic patterns instead of having everything come into one existing gatehouse. So not everything is going to be shifted to the south. I just wanted to kind of re-highlight that.
Great, and I actually have a question that's pretty related to that, Lou. So will the current landfill be open until the transfer station is operational?
Yes, it will. Right now, our plans for the closure of the landfill, we're targeting around 2024. Now that's subjective to any natural disasters. If we have another fire or flood or anything that will encompass large amounts of debris coming to the landfill, we need to service that. But right now we're looking at 2024, and we're looking right now at 22, and as Bill mentioned, September 22 for the opening of the transfer station. And then following that, we're hoping to get our new landfill open by 2023. So these are the target dates that we have right now. So the current transfer station will be functioning and operating with our current landfill still accepting solid waste.
Great. And then one more follow-up on that. So what is the path that the trucks from the transfer station will take to get to the new landfill?
That is a good question. So right now, the traffic study, the engineering department, solid waste, and the county engineering department has done a traffic study relative to what is the best pattern, what is the best route. And they have come up with the trucks, the transfer trailers that will be leaving our transfer station. Those are the larger transfer trucks. They will be coming out of our area, coming out of that intersection, and they will be going down Carpenter Road. So they'll go down Carpenter Road and they will go straight to I-25, to the highway. They will head north on the highway. And right now, the best route based on the traffic study, it's getting off at Owl Canyon Road, heading east, and then going to Route 9, heading north, and then entering the new landfill. Now, right now, that traffic study shows that the county is obviously looking at other avenues and other opportunities within the traffic study. Will there be alternatives routes? Sometimes if there's a closure on Route 9, we may go as far as up to Buckeye, or we also could look at other avenues and other routes just in case there is closure or the construction of Route 9. Because right now the county is looking to redo that Route 9 from I-70 right up to, I'm sorry, that section of Owl Canyon from I-70 to Route 9. So there's a big project development taking place in that. So we're going to leave this open for now, but right now that is the primary route that we have looked at from the engineering study that was conducted.
Great. And to clarify, to get to Carpenter Road, they would take Trilby, correct? Is that how they get to Carpenter?
That is correct. Sorry, I left that out. They would
That's
go
okay.
out. They would go out to Trilby, go out to 287, you know, to
So
college.
Trilby to 287 to Carpenter out to I-25.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we have a question, and we might not have highlighted this well enough. Tell me a little bit about where the new landfill is. It's north of Wellington, correct?
It is. So the new landfill is, as you get off right at Owl Canyon Road off of I-25 and you head east, you hit Route 9 and then you head north. And it's probably just within a quarter of a mile distance from there. So it's right at that intersection, and it's just north of Wellington Township, about 5 miles just due north of the township. So it's in an area where it's we could at least get the traffic in and out of there. And it's also very conducive. It's property that Larimer County bought many, many years ago.
I'm muted. I have a couple of follow-up questions. I want to get the traffic ones out of the way, and then we have, not out of the way. I want to get those answered since we're talking about that. And then we kind of have some questions about diversion and what that means. So I have two questions very specifically concerned about the intersection of 287 and Trilby. I'll summarize. Any of us who live here know that that intersection is a little chaotic to begin with. Do you know of any plans if we have increased truck traffic there? Is there any plans to improve that intersection?
Not that I know of. That is a good question for our engineering department because they're the ones that do all the county planning.
Michelle, maybe I could help out Lou on this one.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
If you don't mind. That is a city of Fort Collins intersection, and there are improvements underway to expand that intersection. And so we're hoping the timing of the two projects will be such that that intersection will be improved. It warrants improvements, and the city of Fort Collins is committed to making those.
Yay!
Get to say something.
So glad we had Lori here. She's got it. Thank you, Lori.
Awesome.
Save me.
Thank you, Lori. Good news. Okay, so steering away from traffic. This is a good question from Boyd. What will be different about diverting material from the landfill in the new landfill operation? I would guess he means in comparison to diverting material today.
So right now today, what we're doing as far as landfill diversion is recycling. We have curbside recycling as part of our main diversion program. In the future, what we're planning to do with the current site here is utilize the property that we have for waste diversion. So material coming in, going to the landfill will go to the transfer station, eventually to the landfill. But we're also looking to diverting other materials such as yard waste and eventually food waste, rather than sending that up north to the landfill. That's just part of our waste shed projects. And also we have plans in the future to do construction and demolition, diversion, and recycling. And that's all pending on markets in the future as things develop. So we're looking at future projects right here on the current site where we're building the new transfer station.
Great. So speaking of the current landfill that will someday be the old landfill, what are the future plans for land use of the property that the current landfill is on?
Well, we're building the transfer station on the current site. We're building the behavioral health project here. We have plans for a compost operation here on the current site, and also a construction and demolition, or C&D. So all this is planning to take place on the areas, not where we actually buried waste, but the areas around the, what you might call the hill of where the trash is buried. We don't plan to actually construct anything on the areas where trash is buried. It's on the adjacent areas of the property that we have used for years as borrow area, where we used some clay material for doing our capping and our operational aspects of the landfill. But it'll be all on this property site.
So if I understand you correctly, the hill is how we like to refer to it. There won't be anything done on the hill, but kind of the area surrounding the hill will be used for other projects.
That is correct.
Okay, this is a good question. With any solid waste transfer, there must be liquid. And I note the retention pond in Bill's deck. I don't know what Bill's deck is, but I'm sure you guys do. What is the plan to test this liquid for hazardous components?
So I'll take that. So that stormwater detention pond is for stormwater, rainwater runoff only. The liquids from inside or any trash drop off, that will all get collected and funneled into the sanitary sewer system. And the two systems are kept completely separate. So any catch basins are not in areas where there would be a chance of commingling of that liquid. So it's 100% rainwater going into the stormwater detention pond. That's more, it's for quality in terms of settling any particulates in that water before it goes to the underground collection system, and also in part to retain water so as not to overload the system in a high rain volume situation.
That was a good question. And I realize now by Bill's deck, he meant your slideshow. So I'm a little slow, but I'll get there eventually. But so what I'm hearing for you is they're really kept separate, right? That liquid that comes from the transfer station is kept separate.
Yes, there's a perimeter drain in the system that collects everything that falls inside the building, and
Right.
Yep, kept separate.
Liquid from a transfer station, that's fun. I'm glad that you guys are around to think about these things. All right. I am not seeing any other questions, so we're going to sit here a little awkwardly to see if something else comes up. Oh, here we go. A couple more jumping in, so great. When is the C&D complete? And what about compost? So they're looking for kind of the timelines on the other things. I don't know if we know those yet, but Lou, you probably are the right one to guesstimate about the timeline on those two projects.
So the compost project, we had that earmarked for next year, but we ran into some complications associated with that project. So we pushed that off for another year. And right now we're looking at new aspects with that project to see how we could maybe speed that up or bring that forward. So we're probably a year or two out with that project. The construction and demolition, that is something that we are looking at partnering potentially with another company, either a company to come in help us with that project. A lot of that is dwelling on markets. There is no markets right now for roofing shingles, which is a lot of what we take in. There is markets for some wood, and there is some markets potentially for very clean gypsum. But there are companies out there that are trying to develop new markets for construction and demolition. I know of a few right now that are doing that, and our long-term future is hopefully to come in with some partners that are actually taking these materials and really taking them to a real viable market source. And that is our goal. We don't want to put in a construction and demolition separation system and have no markets to take this to material. That's the problem within this industry right now. So we're in the forefront of trying to work with other partners in that development. And as soon as that develops, we will be right on board to put that in play.
And Lou, can you just touch base really quickly on why we want to pull out the construction and demolition materials from the landfill? I, not knowing anything about solid waste, I found this fascinating when I learned about this. So I'm hoping you can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there are markets, some materials, for example, wood. If you could separate the wood and from the painted and the non-painted wood, to make it simple, that wood, the clean wood, could actually go to a compost, could go to a biochar operation. There are avenues for those types of materials. And by pulling them out, you're actually saving airspace in the new landfill. So if we could get to our goal, for example, and pull out 40% of the current composition, that will add years, decades of airspace life to the existing landfill. Taking the whole, for example, this landfill right now was built in 1963, so it's 57 years old. It might live to 60 years or 61 years before it reaches closure. Our new landfill, we're looking to have that for 100 years based on current fill estimates. If we could get to our 40% goal long term, that landfill may last 150 years or 130 years. And that will save the county and the residents savings, because you don't have the capital costs of building another landfill and that big capital expenditure of it. So the primary goal of diversion is not only landfill savings, but you save on CO2. It actually helps with the air quality. There's a lot of good reasons why we want to do this, mostly for the environmental impact, the cost savings. So there's a lot of benefits, and actually the fact of taking these materials and putting them to a viable source, as Metroxel said, it makes sense to look at avenues of looking at these as a resource rather than just burying them. And that's one of our primary goals within the solid waste department here at Larimer County.
Thanks, Lou. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that C&D tends to be really, it doesn't compact well, correct? It's concrete, and it's not like the trash that comes out, I would like to think, from my house that, it's probably wrappers and napkins and those types of things that compact down. This is concrete, and it doesn't compact and have kind of the airspace that others do.
Correct. So construction demolition material typically has a bulk density, about 130, 1,300, 1,200 pounds a cubic yard, where regular municipal solid waste is around 600-700 pounds a cubic yard. So when you put it in a landfill, you could actually compact it and get tighter airspace. When you come in with construction and demolition, which is a lot of heavier, bulkier material, it doesn't compact well. It actually takes up more airspace than traditional solid waste. Therefore, it will fill your landfill up quicker and faster than traditional solid waste. So that's part of the reason why, too, some landfills will charge a little bit more for it. Some of them don't even accept it. If you go around the country and look at that, because of the fact that it's a material that's very dense. You're absolutely right, Michelle.
And unfortunately, we live in a place that has quite a few natural disasters. So we tend to see a little bit extra than probably some other places see, just due to our floods and our fires. Okay, so moving on, I kind of have another question somewhat related. Will you eventually sort the trash that goes to the transfer station if you see a lot of recycling in the load?
It's a good question. I would love to do that. I've done that myself many times. Just walking around a trash pile, I'll pick up something. The problem is it's unsafe. It's very unsafe to do that. We would not ask our workers to do that. The best thing for recycling is to put into your recycling stream and have it go to a recycling center where you could actually use equipment and people in a safe environment in order to do that. We will also have very large front-end loaders that will be moving the piles of materials. So to have workers or have anyone in there picking material from the piles is not a practice that we will do because it's unsafe and we care more about the safety of the people. But in the future, you never know. There are mixed waste facilities that do take trash and separate it out, but they do it with mechanical equipment. But we won't be doing that in the transfer station.
Good answer. Okay, so I have 2 more questions that are kind of related about trucks. So I'm going to try to answer that or ask them in one. So first question, how many trucks per day will move from the transfer station up to the new landfill in Wellington? And what's being done about the noise that will cause? And related follow-up question, will all the garbage trucks that currently go to the landfill now go to the transfer station or just the private trash that is brought to the landfill today? So a lot.
Yeah, no, 2 good questions. Thank you. Thank you for those questions. So I'll start with the transfer trailers. We're looking at 30 to 40 transfer trailers per day coming out of the central transfer station, heading up north, going to the new landfill. And the reason why somebody will say, well, you're handling a lot more trash now. And when you do the math and you do the calculations, those 30 to 40 trucks represent anywhere from 700 to 900 tons. Well, the transfer station is not going to get all the tons that we are currently getting right now. Some of the tons, especially in the northern quadrant, let's say just north Fort Collins or up in the Wellington community, those tons that are being collected up there by the route trucks will go directly to the landfill. So what we're trying to do is the traffic up north in the northern hemisphere will go directly up to the landfill. And the traffic that is now coming to us in Loveland will be utilized by the central transfer station. So the transfer station is not going to get everything. There's going to be maybe a 70-30 split, 65-35 split. You know, it's hard to say because a lot of this will depend on the routes of the haulers and where they collect, where they end up. And we don't control that. You know, the haulers will run their routes, but we're trying to at least promote to them to give us the material, bring the material kind of that makes sense from logistical purposes. That way, you don't have all the traffic right now heading up north. If we didn't have the central transfer station, that's what will happen. Wellington would be immersed with traffic because of all the traffic that comes to our landfill today would be heading up there where a new landfill is siting. So the transfer station is really deemed to break some of that up. So hopefully I answered that question correctly.
Yeah, and I think maybe something that was embedded in there was a little bit about, you know, right now public can go to our landfill. Will public have access to the transfer station or will they have access to the Wellington landfill or neither? What's the plan for that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Michelle, as well. So right now the public will be allowed to come to the central transfer station. In fact, we have 13 bays, as you saw in the video. We're actually going to have a nice layout for them. Traffic right now that goes to the landfill, sometimes trucks or vehicles get stuck in the mud. They get, you know, sometimes we're closed because of the mud and conditions. That won't happen in the new transfer station because the residents will be able to come in their vehicles and utilize that service. With the new landfill, we will not be open to the public up there, but we do have convenience centers. We have one up in Wellington as well. We have one in Red Feather. So Larimer County has convenience centers, or what we call convenience centers, but they're really small little micro transfer stations or drop-off centers where trash can be dropped off by the public. So the public could use that as part of the services. But right now, in order to try not to mitigate so much traffic up there, that we were not going to allow the public in the new landfill, but we do have other outlets for that.
Great. Thank you, Lou. Well, it is 6:51. And Lou, I want you to know that someone said that thank you for all your answers. So if folks, one final question, which is a really good opportunity for us to transition. Apparently I have transfer station on the mind for us to transition. If people have further questions, if I can get you guys to reiterate, who do they reach out to? If they have questions or concerns, where do they go? I know, Bill, you talked a little bit about that, but let's say it again for folks.
Sure. So either myself or Justin, and feel free to send them direct to me. And if there's something we can't get answered, we can reach out and do that. So I don't know if I can put my contact info back up. I suppose I can.
You do have access to use the chat box. So a lot of times what I encourage my panelists to do is put their information in the chat box, and you can send it out to all panelists and attendees.
Okay.
And that way folks can copy and paste it into something or be able to just really quickly grab it. So
I will also make sure that all this information is on our webpage. So larimer.org/solid waste is our direct address to our department online. And so there's a button right on the homepage, updates on projects, and we will have breakdowns per each project. So you can click on the transfer station and you will get all of the information that you received tonight, as well as the contacts. And you can always send me an email directly. And if I don't have the answer, I will make sure I round up some of these guys that do and get your questions answered.
Great. Thank you, Griselda. With that, we are kind of getting close to the end, and I don't see a lot more questions. So I wanted to give the opportunity to our panelists if they had anything else that they wanted to add that maybe they didn't get to add, or any closing words.
I would like to pass the mic to Lori to see if she has any closing remarks. Lori, you haven't said much, and I want to get you out here.
Well, that's because I have 2 young boys in the background and 2 puppies that are very excited about Christmas coming up. And so I would want to close with this. Know that this is an exciting time for our solid waste department. We're wanting to transition to a more modern way of taking care of the landfill and working with our regional partners and doing so. The entire state of Colorado is watching us because we're the only region that is doing this type of work. And your help in making sure that we don't negatively impact neighbors and we positively impact the community is very important to us. And so we're anxious to hear your comments and make sure that you keep us on the straight and narrow as we develop these projects and move forward.
Thank you so much, Lori. And I do have one final question, and this is a really good final question. When will construction begin on the new landfill?
Great. Yes, we're looking in 2023. Right now, we're in the stages of our EDOP, Engineering, Design, and Operating Plan. So we're in permit stages. Pending on our permits, that kind of sets the tone for the schedule. So we're in the midst of that right now. After that is our certificate of designation, our CD as we call it. That will be our second permit. Once we have that, we could go to town on construction. So we're waiting on that. We're hoping to have that by the middle or first quarter of next year, if all goes well, pending a lot of things, of course. And then after that, we could go out and start developing our final detail plans, bidding out the project, and of course, construction. So we're hoping optimistically by 2023. But again, as Griselda said, our website, we're going to try to do a more diligent page. Griselda is doing a super job in our communications department, and she will post updates on a regular basis. And we're going to be more forthcoming with our projects, our schedules, So stay tuned. Please go to our website for more of that information and for those updates.
Thank you, Lou. With that being said, I wanted to thank all of our panelists for being here tonight, for spending a little bit of your evening with us. I again want to thank everyone who has contributed up to this point to get to this really exciting kickoff. Clearly, we have a lot of exciting, I'm going to say exciting a lot of times, a lot of innovative projects coming up to really move our county forward. Thank you to our neighbors who came tonight to listen about how it's going to impact them. Again, we encourage you guys to stay involved and reach out to us and engage with us if you have concerns or questions. That was truly the intent of tonight, was to start that engagement. And as it was said many times, the website's going to have a lot of good information, and so will our construction partners. So with that, thank you for joining us tonight in our virtual community meeting / groundbreaking / project kickoff. And we hope you all have some wonderful holidays and a very good New Year. Good night.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.